Hey guys, and welcome to the shoulder decompression video. I'm Dax Moy from FitSystemTraining.com and KineticChangeSpecialist.com, and today I'm going to be taking you through the exact series that I use with my clients and that I educate my team on to use with their clients in order to bring about much improved shoulder function. Now, when a lot of people take on clients, as you've probably experienced yourself in the past, they come with quite an extensive collection of injuries and dysfunctions and problems, and they've usually been told a whole number of stories related to their ability to do something or their inability to do it. So for example, many people that come to see me or come to see a member of my team are of the opinion that they've got frozen shoulders or weak shoulders or shoulder impingements and right? Kind of a million different stories about what may be holding them back from a high quality of function around the shoulder girdle. And what generally tends to be the case is that they have been babying their shoulder for months, if not years, and in some cases decades, with the fallacious belief that they can't do a certain thing, that they're best not move into these kind of ranges or best not do these kind of exercises because it's going to create a shoulder flare-up. And to be fair, the way they generally tend to train their shoulder, the way they generally tend to use their shoulder, that's probably more true than not. The likelihood of injuries on a shoulder that's in the condition that most of them come to me is very, very high. However, what we found is that if we go through a very specific series of decompressing the shoulder, in other words, of taking the joint contact surfaces further apart to actually create space, that the shoulder can, does and will improve in function, and improve in function extremely quickly. So what I'd like you to think about it is that if you start falling into any form of postural dysfunction, okay, so let's say this is something close to neutral, and you start to go into, you know, internal shoulder rotation, protraction, thoracic kyphosis from sitting at a desk all day long, the actual joint contact surfaces of your shoulder, so if you imagine the glenoid fossa, the socket part of the shoulder, and the head of the humerus, their relationship changes. So they change from something like this to something more like this, okay? So different joint contact surfaces are essentially coming into contact with each other. And what that means is that there's increased wear and tear on parts of the joint that shouldn't be getting that level of wear and tear, okay? So over time, what happens is, because those areas are getting lots of compression, lots of pressure in those places, what starts to happen is the joint gets unhappy. It kind of says, well, hold on, I was never designed to take the amount of stress that you're putting through me at that specific position. So what I'm going to do is go through a process called arthrokinetic inhibition. And arthrokinetic inhibition, if you break those words down, arthro means joint, kinetic means movement, and inhibition means a shutting down of neural drive. So the joint itself commands the muscles that surround it to shut down, with the express purpose of saying, well, hold on, if I let you use all of the force that you're capable of using around that joint right now, then you're very likely to exert so much muscle energy through it, to put so much weight through it, that the joint structure is going to be compromised. In other words, you may get injury. So the joint starts to speak to the muscles progressively around that shoulder area and say, hold on, I'm going to take away, you know, let's say this is 100% of your energy, but 100% of your potential neurological energy, potential muscular strength is going to break down that joint. So I'm only going to give you 60% of it. And it sees how you get on with 60% of strength around the shoulder, and then it kind of notices that you haven't really done anything to improve your posture, you haven't really done anything to rebalance the muscles, so it says, oh, hold on, I best take you down to about 50% of shoulder, okay? And so on and so forth, and it progressively robs strength from the system. And this happens again and again and again. And what most people try to do, and usually under the guise of their physios or their personal trainer, is they'll say, well, hold on, I've got a weakness around this shoulder. Surely the best thing for me to do is to start to do strengthening exercises around the shoulder girdle. But unfortunately, if you've only got 40, 50, 60% of your neurology available to you, it doesn't matter how much training you do, you're never going to be able to access all of it in order to make yourself stronger. So you're only able to play with what is left after the dysfunction. And that's where the shoulder decompression series comes in. Because what that series does is it removes the two joint contact surfaces away from each other, so it reduces the amount of compression, and by reducing the amount of compression, the shoulder no longer feels under threat. Because it's no longer feeling under threat, it actually is allowed to have more of its neurological energy, more of its strength will come back, and as long as you do the right things during what we describe as creating space, okay? So the shoulder decompression series is about creating neurological space. we take those joint surfaces apart, you get a little bit of the neurological energy back, and then if we conduct training with that new neurological energy, you now get a much better training effect. So I hope that makes sense to you. It's just a kind of a little bit of the background about why we're going to be doing what we're doing. But ultimately, at its base, it's saying, let's take the kind of the two joint surfaces, let's take them apart from each other, create that little bit of space so the joint no longer feels under threat, and as soon as it doesn't feel under threat, it's going to give you more of the neurological feed that goes into that area. Okay, so there's two parts to this shoulder decompression series. Part one is I'm going to show you the base shoulder decompression. Okay, 3 or 4 specific component parts to the shoulder decompression that actually makes it work. And this is what you should be doing with your clients at the start of every single exercise session, or so I believe, okay? What I've seen is that those people that are having the shoulder decompression done on a regular basis get out of pain very, very quickly. And let's not forget, pain is a really important factor in corrective, rehabilitative, and even performance-based exercise. Okay, if your client is exercising in the presence of pain, their type 4 mechanoreceptors, what are known as nociceptors, are actually speaking into the system and saying, hold on, there's pain here, and because there's pain, let's shut down the ability of that joint to do its work. So pain is your enemy in this case as well. So what the process I'm about to take you through, this very short version, is going to help you get your clients out of pain, reduce the compression around the joint, and give them back a lot more of their neurological strength. As they get that neurology back, you then, as their coach, are going to train them with whatever corrective exercises you normally use for those areas, and as a result, you're going to find that they improve 1,000 times quicker than if they were to go through just doing rehabilitative exercises the way you've been doing them up to now. And that might sound like a bit of an exaggeration, but what I've seen across the course of my own career, and especially while I've been using these decompression patterns, is that clients can often accomplish more in a single session, get out of more pain in a single session, than some people have been able to accomplish in months and even years under traditional training protocols. Okay, so let's begin by having a look at the base shoulder decompression series, and after that we'll go into a full pattern that I use with my own clients and that I train my team and kinetic change specialists to use. And it's called I Definitely Feel I'm Improving Function. Okay, and this series is a whole series of not only the decompressions, but some of the ancillary movements and ancillary techniques that you can use alongside of it in order to bring about the absolute best in terms of shoulder rehabilitation. Okay, but to begin with, I'm going to kind of call in my lovely assistant, Sam, and we'll get Sam over here onto the couch. And Sam, if you could lie flat on your back to begin with. Okay, so you would normally be doing this either on the floor or on a therapy couch. It works, you know, if you're a trainer who works in a gym or you're working out at a client's home, that's fine, you just get them on the floor. It just so happens that we have a couch here and it's really useful for shooting this. I generally tend to do most of this on the therapy couches here, but even at my studio, I only have 2 of these things. And if every member of my team are conducting shoulder decompressions at the same time, we by necessity have to do them off the floor, so you can do them anywhere. Now, the very, very first thing that you do in terms of the shoulder decompression is locate the actual glenohumeral joint itself, okay? So you're going to come all the way to the very, very end of the clavicle, laterally, all the way out to the end of the acromion process until you find the first section of actual muscle. So you're moving into the deltoid and into the cavity that the AC joint forms. Okay, so all I'm going to do is use my thumb or 2 of my fingers to work my way around the border of the head of the humerus. Okay, so I'm really digging in there a fair bit, and it can be a little bit uncomfortable. Certainly if you come in too pointy with your thumb, that can be uncomfortable for your client, and they may start to guard and tense up. But so what you want to do is just kind of peel away the layers, really work your way down so that you see. First off, if the client gives you any reaction that they're in pain, so I'm working my way all the way around the joint, all the way around the back. There's no obvious deformities there, although I will say in Sam's case I can actually feel a lot more tension at the front of the shoulder capsule than I can either on the top or toward the back. Okay, which kind of hints to me that he's got a bit of tightness here that really, really does want to be released. Okay, so that's the very first thing, and it's quite similar. If you've seen the sacral decompression video, it's kind of the same as that you work along the sacral borders first, and you assess it for spring. Okay, the next thing that we're looking at is we're just going to kind of get an idea about where his passive range of motions are. Okay, so there we go. You can see his arm is up in the air a fair bit, so he doesn't have the full range of external rotation available to him. And if I hold the shoulder in place and actually take him, he doesn't have the full range of internal rotation either. He's quite restricted, and it makes sense that as I turn him in this direction, he's very, very restricted, because that's where I was feeling. In the front of the shoulder capsule was the greatest degree of restriction. So that makes a lot of sense to me. Okay, what I'm also going to get him to do is just completely relax. I'm just going to take him through a few ranges to see where he has various restrictions. Okay, so the shoulder range is not too bad in this direction, although as I lift him here, his lower back is moving a little bit. Okay, I bring him across the front. I'm just going to take him around in a nice big circular arc while my hand is still at the head of the humerus. Okay, so I've got some fingers dug in there right behind the back of the head of the humerus. I'm feeling for clicking and popping and any form of restriction. Okay, nothing too bad, although again, a kind of a feeling of stiffness as I come back around to the front. Okay, so in order to actually carry out so that was kind of like a mini assessment, right? Just to see what the restrictions are. You're also paying attention to your client's face to see if there's if there's any grimace as they pass through a certain point. Your clients, it's very, very difficult to disguise pain. If I move you through a certain arc and it's painful, you're probably going to grimace and wince a little bit. Okay, so you want to be on the lookout for that. Now, in order to begin the shoulder decompression itself, it's a very, very simple process. The client's going to lie on their side facing away from you. Okay, and for the shoulder that you're treating is obviously going to be on the top. And it's very simple like this. You bring their arm up to what I call a 90-90 position. So we've got 90 degrees here and 90 degrees there. You take your arm and place the crook of your elbow directly beneath their elbow like this. Okay? Now, so your hand is going to come under the forearm and then back over the top, so you hold hands. And we hold hands because we actually really care about each other quite a lot, don't we, Sam? It's true. Right, so from this position, bring the arm back down so that you're holding hands, but your arm is rested, on the side of the client. From here, take your hand like this, a nice wide web, and find the acromion process, come right to the very edge of it until you hit deltoid, and that is where you're going to place that web of your hand. Okay? From here, actively push the head of the humerus toward the feet. Okay? So I'm putting all of my weight in here and pushing down. And now slowly, and it is important that you do this slowly, whilst maintaining this downward pressure or toward the feet pressure with this hand, raise the elbow toward the ceiling. Okay, now, if you can imagine this, right, my hand is in this spot holding the head of the humerus in place. As I bring the elbow up, effectively the head of the humerus is slipping toward the feet because there's still pressure here. So as the arm comes up, the head of the humerus is now actually being decompressed in that pattern. Okay, so pressing south, elbow comes up, and this is just the first stage of the decompression. Okay, I would now go through 3, 4, 5 repetitions where I'm pushing south and bringing the elbow up. Okay, each time I bring the elbow up, I'm going to bring it a little bit higher so that his elbow should really end up over his ear or over his head. Okay, and I can feel his shoulder clunking a little bit now, but actually there's a fair bit of give going on as well. Can you feel that? Yeah. Okay, it's really releasing, and it's releasing quite well. Okay, so that is phase 1 of the decompression. Once you've done around about 5, 6, or as many, basically the general rule is don't get caught up on actual numbers. Do the decompressions until you feel that they're not making any difference anymore. So you may, after 4 or 5, you may find that number 6 and number 7, they haven't really changed, so now is the point to stop. However, if you find that 10 and you think, well, number 11, yeah, that was an improvement over 10, and number 12 was an improvement over 11, just keep going until the improvements stop, okay? So we've done our kind of our plain vertical decompression. The next phase is to take his hand for a walk, so to speak. And what we're going to do is you're going to steer his arm, you're going to drive his arm. Push out roughly above his head like this. Really hold this shoulder in place with the opposite hand. Reach out and take the arm around in a nice big walk. Okay, like this. And the whole time I'm using this hand to push the head of the humerus toward the feet. So there's always pressure here. As I come forward, I'm actively reaching out. Now if you're a bit on the short side and you're doing this against someone who's taller than you, then grab them by the forearm, okay? But actually reach. It's really important that you get this traction, because otherwise you're just taking it on a kind of a circular ride, which is better than nothing, I guess, but really you want this nice big active pull. Okay, and again, you do as many reps as it takes for you to feel that you'll reach that point where it's not really making any extra difference. You think, actually, the last couple of reps, it didn't really feel like anything changed. So initially, what will happen is at first, you'll feel 3, 4, 5 reps, and you go, each time I go around, it's getting easier, and then you'll find a couple of reps where you think nothing different really happened at that point. When that happens, now's the time to stop. And when I say stop, it's not a true stop, because what we're going to do is quite simply change direction to make sure that he's been decompressed and unrestricted in the opposite direction. So still pushing toward the feet with this hand. Reach down, so it's a big active stretch. As you can see, I'm actually lifting him up, so there's a fair bit of pressure going through him. Take him out, and then back in. Okay, and again, the whole way around, even as I pull him back, I'm pulling back with this arm, so there's an actual stretch across the shoulder girdle. And again, you'll reach that point, which I just have, where it doesn't feel like much difference is happening. So at this point, I'll get him to lay on his back. Take this arm above your head. Okay, now from here, with the arm up at about 45 degrees, pull up toward the ceiling. Okay, now you've got to completely relax this shoulder girdle for me. And what I'm going to do is start to lightly shake the shoulder, just very, very lightly. Okay, you'll notice that as I'm shaking it, I'm taking my hand closer and closer toward the floor, so that now the back of his arm is hitting the couch. You can hear that slapping there. Okay, it's not really, really hard, but it's quite firm. And the entire time, I'm creating traction across the shoulder girdle. Okay, now, I can do the same. We take him up this way first, and now start to shake the shoulder. And this time, it's going to come straight out to the side. I'll hold him on the couch so I don't pull him off. Take him back up to the top. Start to shake, and then have him pulling toward his feet. Okay. Right, so now let's just have a quick look at this arm again. I don't know if you can remember from when we first started the video when I did the assessment phase, but if you completely relax your shoulder for me. Right, so already this arm's come down a good bit. And remember, we've done no actual static stretching or anything, but this arm is much improved. Now if you take it over the other direction, okay, that's also much improved as well. Okay, so this is before we've actually conducted any of the more advanced work. So let's just recap that. It starts with the client being loosely assessed around the glenohumeral joint itself. Okay, so thumbs, 2 fingers, working around the head of the humerus. Okay, from that position, once you're happy that you've located all the restrictions, you get the client onto the side. One hand goes underneath, the other over the top. Like this, okay, so holding hands. Locate the end of the AC joint, come straight onto the end of the deltoid here, push south, okay? And your first repetitions are simply elbow raises and trying to take the arm further and further over his head each time, okay? But it's really, really important that the entire time you've got that pressure toward the feet. Okay, the next stage is to take him on a circular walk, and again with that pressure this way, so all the time. Remember what this is, it's decompression. So you've got to ask yourself, am I actually decompressing the joint? Is the head of the humerus being pushed out? If it's not, you're not really doing what you think you are. So keep that downward pressure, that nice big circular motion. When you feel that it's not making any difference anymore, change direction. Okay, once you've done that, the client goes back onto their back. Okay, completely relaxed. Okay, so to loose a loose shaking, okay? So I'm pulling the hand up toward the ceiling and gradually taking it back behind his head. So we've got a slapping motion on the back of the couch. We come back up, out to the side, repeat, back up, and down toward the feet, okay? So it's a very, very simple process for you to go through. There's nothing overly complicated about it, but it's extremely powerful. I mean, if you can actually assess both shoulders for me for a second, tell me how they feel comparative to each other in terms of looseness and...
The one you've just done the work on is so much lighter.
Yeah.
You can definitely feel the extra range.
Right, and that's the key, right? So it feels lighter. So if he's describing it as lighter, it means that he's gotten stronger. And if he's gotten stronger, it's because we've actually undone the compression that's in the shoulder, giving him back a lot of his neurological energy, and because of that, he's going to be able to become far more effective when he goes into his exercise routine. Now, whether that exercise routine be corrective, whether it be more performance, or whether it be bodybuilding, it doesn't really matter what the workout is. At this point, all the extra neurological energy that we've given him up to now is actually going to be something that he can actually use in these sessions, and that's going to make a huge difference. So instead of taking months and months or even years to make a difference to his shoulders, he's going to find that in just, even in this session today, if he was to go and train his shoulders right now, he'd have a far better connection, and because of that, the results are going to be far greater. Okay, so that is it. That's your base shoulder decompression routine. There's nothing overly complicated about it, but if you practice that and you use that on a regular basis with your clients, the results you're going to get are going to be phenomenal. So go get to it.